Just look at people who are here anyway, people who've been born in this country, perhaps people who might be third or fourth generation immigrants. They're more often than not the ones who are forming rape gangs. So how do we tackle that?
Once upon a time, it was talking about taking back control. Now it's about sending British citizens to countries they've never even visited. This is re-immigration. And the far right just said it out loud on TV. Before we get into this, please hit that subscribe and ring that bell. We're building a movement to push back against this. And one of the reasons we need to push back is because there are stark similarities to how Nazi Germany came about. In front of you is a video clip of the Nuremberg trial and Hermann Goering, Hitler's second-in-command, being tried for war crimes. Psychologist Gustav Gilbert, who interviewed Nazi leaders at Nuremberg, asked Hermann Goering how he got the public to accept war and dictatorship. Goering replied,
"It is always a simple matter to drag the people along. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism. It works the same way in any country."
They didn't start with gas chambers, they started with propaganda, with slogans, with normalizing the idea that entire groups don't belong.
This journal, published by Julius Streicher in Nuremberg, is an abominable sewer of the worst kind of anti-Semitic cliches. Jews eating and sacrificing children, trafficking white slaves, lustful, rapists, thieves, all the cliches are there.
Sound familiar? And we're not done, because here's the owner of the paper saying some horrendous stuff.
Dem deutschen Volke wird der Vorwurf gemacht, es habe den Antisemitismus, den Kampf gegen die Juden in die Welt gebracht und sei deshalb ein barbarisches Volk. Wer dies behauptet, sagt die Unwahrheit. Schon vor Jahrtausenden waren nicht-jüdische Völker gezwungen, sich gegen jüdische Eindringlinge zu wehren.
Even children were taught the logic of extermination in games.
In 1936, Germans were crazy about a new game, Judenraus, Jews Out, a game for the whole family, a bit like Monopoly, which was created the same year in the States. It was a board game that claimed to be for old and young alike. Its creator was an engineer from Dresden. The rules of Judenraus were simple. The wooden board represented the streets of a town bordered by all kinds of Jewish shops, Cohens, Goldmans, etc. The player threw the dice and landed on a space with the aim of going into the shop, taking its owner prisoner, and then choosing whether to send him to one of the camps or letting him go to Palestine. "Get rid of 6 Jews and you're the winner," explained the instruction leaflet. The winner was the one who deported the most Jews.
Now, interestingly, Streicher was actually tried at Nuremberg, found guilty, and hung. Because you can't go around saying stuff like that because it incites hatred. Yet, if I replace what Alex said with the word Jew, you'd think she was a Nazi.
We can go on about the French. I mean, it's extraordinary that we've given them 800 million now since 2014. And looking at Rachel Reeves's statement during the week, there's hundreds more millions going to the French. We can blame the French all we want. It's our fault. It's our problem. We are the soft touch.
But we still have a problem. Even if we manage to start intercepting and stopping the boats, we've still got a problem of people who've come here illegally already, very likely, no doubt, to be granted asylum in our ridiculous system, soon to be dispersed in multiple occupancy residences around the country. And even if you just look at people who are here anyway, people who've been born in this country, perhaps, people who might be third or fourth generation immigrants, you have balkanized communities who don't share our values, who don't speak our language.
She has just made up a load of facts and figures that are the equivalent of listening to someone give facts and figures about flat earth theory. Frankly, Joseph Goebbels would be quite proud of this rhetoric. Note, like a flat earther, she never provides any statistics. She also never gives you any evidence that anyone is following these values, and she never actually defines what those values are. This isn't about immigration, this is about racial purity.
In fact, they're more often than not the ones who are forming rape gangs, not people who got off a boat yesterday. So how do we tackle that particular issue? The general public are as worried about that as they are about the boats. And it seems to me that you're going to have to put forward a very radical slate of policies to even begin to touch the sides. Have you got the courage and the conviction to do that?
Well, you're right.
Let's be clear. Alex Phillips isn't talking about new arrivals now. She's talking about British citizens born here, raised here, who pay taxes, whose only crime is having the wrong skin tone or last name. This isn't about immigration. This is about racial purity. If this were really about grooming gangs or SA, we'd be talking about men, not immigrants, not from different parts of the world. because 97% of sexual violence is committed by men of all races. But Phillips doesn't mention men, she mentions minority groups. Because this isn't about protection, it's about scapegoating, which is why I referenced the Nuremberg trials earlier. Hitler's head of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, even once said,
"Repeat a lie often enough and it becomes truth."
The Nazis told their population that German Jews were a threat. Now Phillips is telling you that your British-born neighbour is. This is not policy, it's a pattern, and it's a road to fascism. Let's talk about Nigel Farage, who was also in this interview and agreed with what Alex Phillips said. Because the hypocrisy will never end. In a Bulgarian interview from about a decade ago, Farage admits his own ancestors fled France as refugees. That's immigration. That is their definition of illegal immigration.
What's the origin of the name Farage?
Originally, we were persecuted Protestants from France who fled.
There you go.
Who fled in fear of our lives and were welcomed in by England.
So if we start deporting third or fourth generation Brits, should Farage pack his bags for Paris? He rails against benefits against foreign-born residents, yet here he is sitting on the spoils of immigration himself.
You have balkanised communities who don't share our values, who don't speak our language. In fact, they're more often than not the ones who are forming rape gangs, not people who got off a boat yesterday.
You mean people like Prince Philip, who was a refugee who came over to the UK and married into the royal family, but really is Greek and Danish, and seen here at the head of a Nazi funeral parade. Who hung out with Jimmy Savile so much that Jimmy Savile used to bring him little girls. Have a listen to this.
Very good fix that I did with a young lady at Buckingham Palace. I was at a reception at Buckingham Palace. That's the place where the Queen lives and Prince.
I know, they keep the Queen there,
yes. It's not an easy gaff to penetrate. Very, very...
Wait a minute, what's that? That an easy...
It's not an easy place to get into.
Aha!
That's
yes.
right.
Yeah.
So I was at this reception, and there was a very nice lady and gentleman said to me, "My daughter would be so pleased to know that I've met you and this, that and the other." And I said, "Oh yes. Where is she?" And they said, "She's in the back of the car." I said, "What, in the boat?" And they said, "No, we've sneaked her in the back of the car so she can say she's been in the palace courtyard." I said, "And you've got her stuck out there?" I said, "Oh, leave it to me." And they went, "No, please, no." And they grabbed her. I said, "No." So I went to see a minder and said, "They've got this situation and I'm bringing a friend in." So I said, "Listen, who's going to object to you?" So I said, "All right." Now, the palace staff are the most excellent people, right? On the way out, I explained very briefly what I was doing. Leave it to us. So I went out into the car park, which is a courtyard inside the palace, and I shouted the young lady's name. Next minute, she's holding my arm, and next minute we're marching up the steps right into the palace. Well, the staff had done it right. The two footmen opened the two great doors, and inside there were all the majors and the colonels and the household staff. It's a most elegant situation and tremendously rewarding, right? And of course, when she sees this spectacle of the carpet and the people all standing there, and they all give a little graceful dip as she walked by, and she was now hanging onto me like a lifebelt. Understand? Right? And we walked up the steps and into the room where the reception was, in a room called the Bow Room, and fantastic look. Prince Philip, who was a marvellous geezer, happened to be just standing inside the door, parroting to somebody. So I went...
It's a pre-arranged signal, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, no, there's not a lot of people go psst inside the palace. People do him. So he's from the butchers, right, like this. See me, and I do the nod. What a kid I went. So he doesn't know where this young lady's appeared from, with a long coat on and bumpy shoes, but he has given the beautiful smile, and she's gone... Right? That was a fix-it that I really enjoyed, and I think she might remember it, even if her parents and herself are watching tonight. She might even remember it to this day, and I think a lot longer.
And of course it doesn't end there with the family, because it seems to be generational. Prince Andrew has had multiple pictures taken of him with Epstein, even after he was prosecuted for paedophilia.
Why have you decided to talk now?
Because there is no good time to talk about Mr. Epstein and all things associated.
But I'm not done yet, because Farage was asked about marrying cousins, that oh-so-royal tradition.
Is it not the case that without immigrants, the women in your country would grow moustaches because you would have ended up marrying your first cousins?
For once, he's lost for words. His presence in Bulgaria, so controversial, that no government minister has agreed to meet him.
And yet now you can't get the bastard off the TV. If values are the test, then the palace will be empty by Monday. What we're seeing is a thirst that never ends. It's never enough. First it's the EU, then it's the boats, then it's the migrants, then it's the citizens, then it's neighbours, and it won't stop. Not until they force through a total solution. This is not immigration control. It's not about boats. This is about creating second-class citizenship, where white means British and everyone else is on probation. This is unfortunately how it begins. Let's try not to go in for those kisses of the fascists, especially when deep down we know we shouldn't be kissing any frog prince. So first of all, I'd like to ask you to leave a comment in the description. It will help the algorithm push this video. But also, there's a letter in the description ready to send. Below you'll find email addresses for TV regulators and public broadcasters. Use them. Demand that Alex Phillips be taken off air. There must be consequences when mainstream TV becomes a megaphone for fascist, racist behaviour. In the meantime, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers who keep this channel going and growing. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.